Hello, everybody. Welcome to Music Theory for the Guitar by Peter Lamby. That's me. My name is Peter Lamby. And the reason I'm making this series of videos is to give people everything it took me years in universities and colleges and thousands of dollars learning about music and music theory. Only I'm going to give it to you essentially for free and in a series of episodes that will be essentially 12 videos long. I hope to give you a better understanding of music theory and how it applies to the guitar. Because if you want to be a guitarist, knowing music theory is indispensable. This is the first video. You could call it lesson one. We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about notes and pitches. And remember, when I say the word note or the word pitch, I'm using those two words simultaneously, coincidentally. In other words, they mean the same thing. A note and a pitch is the same thing. So we're going to talk about notes and pitches. We're going to talk about what a pitch is. We're going to talk about what the 440 pitch is, which is what we tune our guitars to, a perfect 440A. And that word perfect is very important in music theory. We're going to try to begin to get an understanding of the concept of perfection, okay, which is very important in music. We're going to talk about intervals. We're going to start with prime intervals. And then later in the video, we're going to move to different things, qualities of the two types of intervals. There are two types of intervals. Each one has its own properties. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to also talk about the guitar, the different parts of the guitar, how guitars are made, a little bit, not go too much into that, but we're going to talk about the guitar itself, what they're made out of, the different parts, and how they're constructed a little bit. And then to wind up, we're going to tune our guitars to prime intervals using harmonics. Now, what is a harmonic? Well, when you hear a note, you're hearing that note, of course, but you're also hearing harmonics that are being generated by that note. And these harmonics, you may not know you're hearing them, but you are. And they're sort of hovering around your head. And you might not know that you're hearing them, but you are, because they are essentially drowned out by the volume of the fundamental note. So, for example, let's say I have the note A, there it is, on the open A string of our guitars. Okay, well, you're hearing that A, of course, but you're also hearing the double octave. Hear the double octave? That is the note A as well, but it's the double octave. You're also hearing the octave. Hear the octave? So you have the open A, you have the octave, and the double octave, and you're also hearing the fifth. Hear that note? That note is B. Now, what is the fifth? Excuse me, that note is E. What is the fifth of the note A? Well, to get that, it's very simple. All we do is count on our fingers. We say A, B, C, D, E. E. E is the fifth of the note A. Okay, so we have A, we have the fifth, which is E. Okay, and E just happens to be the same note as the open E string on your guitar. Hear that? Same note. Same note. Okay. So, we hear the A, we hear the E, but what else do we hear? Well, we also hear the fifth of the note E. What is the fifth of the note E? Again, very simple. All we need to do is count on our fingers. Okay, so we say E, F, G, A, B, B. B is 5. B is the fifth of the note A. Alrighty. So, we're hearing that B as well, even though we don't know it, because these harmonics are muted by the fundamental volume of the original note, which in this case is the note A, the open A on your guitar. So we actually are hearing the open A, the octave, the double octave, the fifth, and we said the fifth, the fifth is the same as the open E on your guitar. It's the top end, okay, the lowest string on your guitar, the skinniest string, that's the string E. If you play the harmonic on the A string at the 7th fret, you get E. Okay? Yeah, that same note. Now, you also get the B. That's the second string up on your guitar. Okay, so you're hearing A, the octave A, the double octave of A, the fifth of A, which is E, the fifth of E, which is B, and you're also hearing the fifth of B. Well, what is the fifth of B? The fifth of B is very simple. Count on your fingers. B, C, D, E, F, 5. F is the fifth of B. But is it F? Well, no, it's not. It's actually F sharp. And why is that? Because in the key of B, there are a number of sharps, and one of those sharps is F. So to get the perfect fifth, you cannot play F. You have to play F sharp because F is sharp in the key of B. So let's look at F sharp. Here's an F sharp, right? Here's an F sharp. And let's get the harmonic for F sharp. Hear that? And here's another F sharp. All the same note, although they may be octaves of each other. So this is all going on when you hear the note A that you started out with. All of that's going on. You're hearing the A, the octave, the double octave, the fifth of the fifth, and the fifth of that fifth, which in the case of A is F sharp, as we just demonstrated. Now, if all of this is a little much for you, I want you to hang in there, because as we go along, it's going to become much easier. And if you practice makes perfect. If you practice your instrument and you let your mind open up to the theory of the instrument, you'll become a much better guitarist. And that I can guarantee. All right. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to switch lanes a little bit, and we're going to talk about the guitar. Okay? So, let's do that. So, let's move on to the concept of pitches. Okay, we're talking about pitches in music now. Let me see if I can get my little trusty whiteboard here. Alrighty. And I'm going to show you what a pitch is. Let's say we have a piano. Here's the keyboard. Okay, and we walk up and we hit the keyboard and we hit the note A. Well, there goes the note A. It's taken off from the piano, and eventually it goes across the room and it hits my ear. Okay, see that? This is the note or pitch A. Alrighty, see that? But guess what? It does not travel in a straight line. No, it doesn't. It travels in a wave. And what does a wave look like? Well, we know what a wave looks like. It looks like this. Okay? This is a wave. And in fact, it's a sine wave. Okay? And see my sine wave? Okay? That's the pitch A for purposes of our discussion right now. Well, what do we know about a wave? Well, a wave has something at the top called the peak, and it also has something at the bottom called the valley, and in between those two things you have a cycle. Alrighty, so you see how that works? That's very easy. We have a wave, see my wave? And then at the top we have a peak. At the bottom we have a valley. And in between the two, we have a cycle. The cycle runs from here from the peak to the valley and is represented right in this area here. Okay, so when you produce this wave, okay, such that it is cycling at 440 times per second, okay, you are listening to a perfect 440A. Okay, so let's write that down. Okay, when a wave cycles at 440 times per second, we have a perfect A pitch. All right? So that's pretty simple, don't you think? A perfect 440A is a wave flying through the air that's cycling at 440 times per second. So that's pretty good. Now we're going to talk about prime intervals. Remember we discussed prime intervals? And we discussed intervals. What is an interval? An interval is the musical distance between two notes. Okay? So here's my piano. Okay, I got the legs. I got the keyboard. And I need a second source because we need two sources for an interval. We need two pitches. Those two pitches can be the same, but they can be produced by two different places or sources. One could be a piano, the other can be a voice. One can be a voice, the other can be a violin. One can be a violin, and the other is a harmonica. But what we have is we have two pitches flying through the air, and they began at two different sources, okay? So let's say the second source is a violin. Here, I'll draw a violin. Okay? And each one of these violins are playing a perfect 440A. Okay? And here I am over here with my ear, and I'm listening to these two notes flying through the air. Alrighty? See that? Very simple. However, when you have two notes that fly through the air, and they are perfect intervals, which a prime interval is a perfect interval. Alright, now we're going to go through this later. I don't want you to get hung up on this now, but there are two kinds of intervals in music theory. One is perfect, and the other is called diatonic or diatonic to the key. And each one of those intervals have properties. And a property of a perfect interval is that when they fly through the air, they never collide. I'm talking about the two sine waves now. They never collide. If they do collide, a few things are happening. One, you'll hear a node, which is the collision point of the two pitches, and that sounds like this: wah, 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 wah. You can also feel it. It feels like a bump. You can feel it if you have your instrument sitting on a table and you put your hand on the table. You can feel the bumps. Those bumps are nodes. The wah wah is a node. The node represents when the two pitches are colliding. With a perfect interval, the two pitches never collide. They travel in parallel. So let's say the piano makes a pitch, okay? And it looks like this. And the violin makes a pitch, and it looks like this. You can see that in between, they never meet. They never collide. They run parallel. You see how that is? Okay. If these two pitches collide, all right, then you are out of tune. And so you have to adjust your string on your guitar by using the machine heads, the tuning peg, to tighten or loosen the string. That will make it either sharp or flat. Eventually, you will hear the wah-wah, which are the nodes, slow down. They start out like wah, wah, wah. As you get more in tune, they slow down and they sound like wah, wah, wah. When that wah disappears, your two strings on your guitar are in tune. Okay? So that is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, I would say. All right. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break from talking about the science of this stuff, and we're going to look at our guitar. Okay? So, I'm going to try to focus in a little bit here, and I'm going to get my guitar. Now, we have a guitar here. Okay, this happens to be a Yamaha. Okay, I have several guitars. I'll probably show them to you over the course of the video series. This area here, okay, this is called the head or the headstock. These are called tuning pegs, but that's a bad word to use. Okay, if you want to be a guitarist, you should use the word machines or machine heads, because that's what professional guitarists call these. They call these machine heads or machines. Now, we want to be a guitarist. What does that mean? We want to be good enough to play in front of people. We want to be able to get up on stage and play in front of a crowd. So we're striving to practice, to get better on our instrument, and that's why we're listening to these videos, because music theory is very important to someone who wants to have a serious experience with music. Okay, everybody loves music, of course. But to love something isn't to participate in it. Okay, you can love soccer, but you might not play soccer. You like watching it. You like going to the park and watching a game, but you don't play it yourself. But you want to be a guitarist who participates. So that means that you want to use the proper nomenclature. Okay, this is why we don't call these tuning pegs, we call them machine heads. Now we come down here. You can see this little white thing here. That's called the nut. The nut is there to provide tension on the strings. It's the tension on the string that determines the pitch of the string. Okay? We can tighten the tension or loosen the tension by using the machines. Okay? Now we're going to come up here and we're going to look at the guitar forward this way. Okay, coming this way. So what do we have? Well, first thing we have is the neck. And you can see the neck is made out of two pieces. I don't know if the video is clarifying that for you, but this neck is made out of two pieces. They're different colors. That means they're different woods. The underlayment of the neck under here, okay, is usually made out of the same wood as the back and the sides. Okay, so in this case, I don't know what wood it is, but I'm going to guess it's walnut. Okay. However, on top of the neck, we have the fretboard. And the fretboard, I don't know if you can see it here, it's a different type of wood, and it's made, in this case, out of rosewood. And fretboards are usually made out of rosewood, although sometimes they're made out of ebony. And you know ebony when you see it because it's a black wood, has a very beautiful deep black color. Or sometimes the guitar is made with a solid neck, and that's usually made out of maple. And Fender guitars are very famous for making guitars that are completely made out of maple, including a solid maple neck. So, that would comprise, or that would be talking about the neck of the guitar. Okay. Now, of course, we have the sides. In this case, I believe the sides are walnut. We have the back. That's almost always the same wood as the sides. Okay. On the front, we have the face of the guitar, which is almost always made out of either spruce or maple, okay, or Sitka wood, which is a type of spruce, okay. Now we have something that's interesting in this little circle here that goes around the sound hole. That's called the Rosetta, okay. And what is the Rosetta? Well, on a expensive guitar, the Rosetta is a separate piece of wood that the luthier makes, and luthier is a fancy word for someone who builds guitars. He makes the Rosetta out of a separate piece of wood, and then he sinks it into the face of the guitar. Now, on expensive guitars, you can run your finger around the inside and you can feel that Rosetta, okay? But on cheaper guitars, like this is a cheap guitar, generally it's printed on or painted on. I don't know how it's put on, but it's not this quality construction of having the Rosetta made and then sunk into the face of the guitar. Okay, so now, of course, we have the strings, and what are they? Well, you got the E string, the A string, the D string, the G string, the B string, and the E string. Okay, so we have the strings. Now we're coming over to the bridge. Now the bridge is very important, okay, because the bridge is an integral part of the guitar. When the bridge is made, it is sunk into the body of the guitar and it connects to the cross members that are inside your guitar, and it uses the guts of your guitar to make the sound. Depending on those guts and the quality of the woods and the kinds of woods that are used, you have some guitars that sound beautifully and some guitars that don't sound beautifully. They're more mediocre, they're not so good. Usually those two things correlate with the price of the guitar. Expensive guitars are usually better made and sound better. Inexpensive guitars are not quite made as well and don't sound as good. Okay, so we have the bridge. This little plastic piece here is part of the bridge, and it simply serves as the counterpart to the nut about down here to provide tension on the strings. And again, the tension load on the strings is going to determine what note you're playing, okay, and whether or not you're in tune. Okay, so these guys here, they're just there to hold the strings in. Okay, they're pegs. Okay, and pretty much that's the parts of an acoustic guitar, which this is an acoustic guitar. Okay, so all right, everybody, we're back. And what we're going to do is we're going to tune our guitars. Now, we're going to use a method that classical guitar players use. These concert guitarists, if they're playing with a string ensemble, or sometimes they even play with full orchestras, everybody has to tune up. Okay, it's very important that everybody be in tune. So let's say you have a guitarist who's playing with an orchestra or an ensemble, string ensemble. How do they all get in tune? Well, they start with a perfect 440A. Now, you might say, well, where am I going to get this 440A, this perfect 440A? Well, you can do a few things. You can walk up to a piano, hit the A key on the keyboard, and that'll give you an A. Okay, and you can tune to that. But what if the guy that tuned the piano was having a little bit of an off day, and he tuned the piano a little bit off because he was having a little bit of an off day? That means that when you tune your guitar to his piano, your guitar is going to be off. Okay. What else can you do? Well, you can get a harmonica that's in the key of A and blow out the fourth hole. That's going to give you an A. All right. The note that you want. But what if the harmonica wasn't made quite right in the factory? Well, then your guitar is not going to be tuned quite right because you tuned to a harmonica that's not quite right. So what are we going to do? Well, there is a solution. We're going to use this. This is a tuning fork. And what this tuning fork it's made in a factory, and it's made to ring at a perfect 440A. After it's made, it's tested against something called an oscilloscope, and that is an instrument that gives you a visual representation of sine waves. Okay, so they know when this thing's right that it's ringing at 440 cycles per second. As we discussed earlier, a pitch that's cycling through the air at 440 cycles per second is a perfect 440A. Okay, so how do we use this? Well, it's very easy. You want to hover your finger over the 5th fret of your A string. You hear that note? That's the note you want. And that note, you should be the same note you hear when you touch you bang your tuning fork on the table and you touch to your bridge, and your guitar will ring at 440A. Okay, so now let's just, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to flat this note a little. Okay, just a little bit. Let's listen carefully. Okay, listen carefully now. Okay. Let's do it again. Hear the wah, wah, wah? Remember we talked about that? What is that? That's when the two pitches are intercepting each other. They're crossing. They're going through the air. They're coming to your ear. And they're colliding. They're colliding. We don't want that. Those are nodes. When you hear those nodes, you're out of tune. Let's see if we can hear those nodes. Hear them? They're going, wah, 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 wah. Hear that? Let's try again. Hear it? Wah, 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 just like that. Okay, so what do? We got to sharpen that A. Let's hear again. Hear it slow down. Wah, wah, wah. Let's hear that. It's important that we be able to hear that. Wah, 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 wah. Hear it going like that? It's still flat. We got to sharpen it. Okay? Let's try it again. Now it's wah, wah, wah. Okay, so I think it's a little sharp. I think that's it. Okay. Getting this right on the money, it's not easy because we're dealing with very, very slight variations. Wah, wah, wah. All right, I'm going to go with that. Okay, so that's going to be my A. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use that A to tune the rest of our guitar. Okay, so what do we know? We know that when we hit the 5th fret harmonic on the A string, that's the double octave of the A, which is the 440 A we're talking about. It's not this. That's the A string. That's the octave. That's the double octave. And that pitch is cycling at 440 times per second. So what do we have? We have the double octave of the A. And what do we get when we get the D? We can get an A on that. How do we do that? Well, if we get the 5th, and how do we get the 5th? That's hovering our finger over the 7th fret. So we say D, E, F, G, A, A. We want the A on the D string. Okay, just like that. That's pretty close. Yeah, now I'm gonna intentionally flatten that string a little. Because I want you to hear the wah-wah. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, 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 wah. Right? You hear that? You gotta listen carefully. Let's now sharpen the D string to bring it in tune with the A. That's pretty close. All right, now we're going to use the D string to do the same thing with the G string, which is the next string down. So let's do that. Whoops. Pretty close, okay? Now we're going to tune the E string, which is the top fat string right here, to the A string I'm talking about. And how do you do that? Well, we know we get an E on the A when we play the harmonic over the 7th fret. How do we know that? Because we know we get the 5th. What is the 5th of A? A, B, C, D, E. E. Here is the E string. This is the low E. The low end E, all right? This one's the top end. That's the top. Here's the bottom, the low end. Now, if we hover our finger over the 5th fret of the E string, we're going to get the double octave. Hear it? Now we go to the 7th fret of the A string, which is below it. And those two strings, those two pitches are the same. Okay? Now you can even feel it. Okay, I can feel it in my finger that's touching my guitar. It's going wah, 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 wah. So, okay. All right, so what do we have? We have the first 4 strings in tune to the A, which is in tune to the tuning fork. And we know that the 5th fret harmonic rings at 440 cycles per second. Okay? Now we have a dichotomy. We have a little problem. The guitar is tuned to fourths, but the difference between the G string and the G string and the B string is a third. In fact, it's a major third. Now we're going to go into intervals either at the end of this video or at the beginning of next video. Okay? But the difference between G and B is what? All you have to do is count on your fingers. G, A, B. 3. It's a third. In this case, it's a major third. All right, now I'm just going to jump ahead here so I'm making sense with the words I'm using. We're going to go over this later. There are 2 kinds of intervals. One is perfect and one is diatonic, or you can call it diatonic to the key. Perfect intervals are primes, fourths, fifths, and octaves. Those are the perfect intervals. Seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths are diatonic intervals. Okay? The difference between G and B is a third. It is a diatonic interval, and it's not in line with the rest of the guitar. The rest of the guitar is tuned to fourths. But the difference between G and B is a third. So what do? We can't use this 5th fret to 7th fret mode. Okay, we need something else. Well, what do? Well, where's a B on one of the strings that's already in tune? Well, it's right here on the E string. What is the 5th of E? E, F, G, A, B. B is the 5th. How do we get the B on the E? We hover our finger over the 7th fret. Okay, and that's the same note as your open B at the bottom of your guitar. Okay, get rid of those wah-wahs. Pretty close. Okay. So what do we got now? We have these 5 strings in tune. But we still have the high E. Okay. The high E is on the bottom of the guitar. It's the skinniest string. Okay, on your guitar. It is the note E. Well, where do we get the note E in one of the strings that's already tuned? Very easy. What do we have here? We have an E. What do we have here? We have the octave of the E. What do we have here? We have the double octave, right? That note we tune to the open E down here. Okay, so now this is a better method of tuning your guitar, especially if you're using an acoustic guitar. Electric guitars are a little different. They're made a little different. You really should tune them to an open chord. Okay? So when your ears are trained, you'll hear that it's in tune when you play the chord. Same with the C chord. Right? Now I could have used this method, which most people do. Okay? But that method, you really can't hear the notes bumping because the register of the notes is low. Whereas this method, the register is high and it's easier to hear the notes hit. Okay. So that's how you tune your guitar using prime octaves and harmonics. Even after you're done tuning your guitar, you should listen to it. Because guitars are all different. They're not like trumpets, French horns, clarinets. Those instruments only play melodies. They only play one note at a time. A guitar can play 6 notes at a time, so it's much more difficult to get them tuned up. Sometimes you have to listen after you tune your guitar and you play chords in different positions, right? Like you can play a D chord up here. Okay, you got to play it in different positions and listen. You got to develop your ears. Very important. Ear training is very important if you want to play an instrument or you want to have a serious experience with music. You have to train your ears. Okay, and one way that you can train your ears is to work with intervals, because a good musician, and you don't need perfect pitch for this. Most people don't have perfect pitch. Perfect pitch only, like, I would say 1 in 3 million people, 4 million people have perfect pitch. Many people have what's called relative pitch, which means they can hear a pitch and figure out, whether the next pitch is higher or lower, and they can train relative pitch to be able to play an instrument so that they know that the instrument's in tune. When they play with someone else, they know they are in tune with that other person. They have that ability because they have relative pitch. That's the vast majority of people in the world. Some people are tone deaf. They're not deaf, they're tone deaf. And those people generally do not appreciate music, but there's only very, very small number of people that are tone deaf. Okay, there's a small number of people that are tone deaf. There's an even smaller number of people who have perfect pitch, but in the middle, you got the others, and they have what's called relative pitch. If you have relative pitch, you can train your ears to follow music. You can hear a song, figure out the chords, listen to the song, figure out the melody. We're going to do all that in the videos to come. We're going to listen to music. We're going to figure out the chords in the song. We're going to figure out the melody. And I'm also going to show you how to write songs. But it's going to be songs the way I write songs, because everybody's different and everybody as a different person would write different songs based on their own personal personality. So, but I can show you the fundamentals of what music composition is, and I'm going to do that in a video, because the basis of Western music all revolves around one thing, and that is the resolution of what's called the dominant 5/7 chord to the tonic chord, or you could say that another way, the 5/7 chord to the 1 chord. Okay, how does that work? But more important, why does it work? Why do people listen for this resolution of the 5/7 chord to the 1 chord? It's actually based on two things. The fact that over thousands of years listening to music in the Western world has imprinted this desire to hear this resolution on people's genes. It's in their brains, in other words. Okay. The other thing is more scientific. It has to do with consonance versus dissonance, and the reason why people want to hear a dissonant sound move to a consonant sound, just like anything else in the world. If you have an animal that's hungry, it's going to hunt. It's going to move towards something to eat. Okay, it wants to do that, and your brain is trained musically to want to hear a dissonant sound move towards a consonant sound. This is very important. It's also very theoretical, but this is a music theory video. So we're going to go with it. Alrighty. So my suggestion is that you do a few things. Learn how to tune your guitar the way I showed you, using prime intervals and harmonics. Practice, okay? Practice makes perfect. And I don't know whether to end this video now or maybe continue or stop. Not go into intervals on this video, wait till the next. But I can give you a few things more that I did want to tell you. So, for right now, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back for a few minutes, and we'll talk a little bit more. And when we meet again, we're going to do a few things. We're going to go into intervals, much more in depth. We're going to start talking about chords. Chords are built in thirds, while intervals are 2 notes. Chords are 3 notes. They can be 4 notes, providing that those notes are thirds, build one on top of the other. We're going to talk about scales, keys. Maybe we'll get into key signatures, time signatures. Some things, it's good to simply commit to memory. Okay. For example, if I said to you, how many keys are in the how many sharps are in the key of C? Well, you would say none. There are no sharps, there are no flats. When you play the C major scale, C to C, that's 8 notes. You hit no black keys. What are black keys on the piano? They're sharps and flats. How many sharps are in the key of G? 1. That is F. F sharp is in the G major scale. Okay? If you see F sharp, 1 sharp in a key signature on a piece of music, you know you're in the key of G. How many sharps are in the key of D? 2. F sharp and C sharp. Now we can have fun. You can have fun with your musician friends. Ask them, how many sharps are in the key of F? They'll say 1 or 2. Well, they're wrong because there are no sharps in the key of F. F is a flatted key. Okay? There are only flats in flatted keys and only sharps in sharp keys. So the key of F has one flat, and what is that? That's B flat. Next key on the cycle of fifths, which we're going to go through the cycle of fifths. That's the way you figure out all the sharps and flats in all the keys. The next key in the cycle of fifths after the key of F is B flat. How many flats are in B flat? 2. B flat and E flat. Okay, so we're going to go through all that. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun working together. Okay, so that was a lot of fun.